You can now hear Movie Heaven, Movie Hell on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Listen anytime, anywhere. Stitcher is an award-winning free app that lets you listen to all your favorite shows, plus discover from 20,000 news, entertainment, and sports shows. You can also create your own custom playlists. Stitcher is available on iOS, Android, Nook, iPad, and in over 4 million car dashboards. It's on demand and it's on the go. No downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. You can stream your favorite podcasts from Stitcher. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store. And please leave us a review and rating on Stitcher. Thank you. Welcome to Movie Heaven, Movie Hell with me, Simon Aitken, and
I'm Keith Eyles, and we are both independent filmmakers that enjoy talking about other directors' work. And we are at the end now of our first pass of the alphabet. So today we are on the letter Z, or Z if you're listening in the US. And we've actually covered 25 directors because we only missed X so far. So yeah, it's unbelievable that we've got to the end of our first pass. There you go.
We have. But rest assured, when we go through the second pass, we're going to miss some more directors, just because it was, for some letters, it was really hard to find a director to talk about, let alone, other directors to talk about. But
yeah,
we'll see how we go. We maybe people can suggest directors for letters that we're gonna miss out.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are some letters like specifically like C, L, and S, where there's absolutely dozens of choices, but then there's others where there are indeed less so. Also, I think it's also fair to say that what we've done so far, has been very personal. I mean, we've talked a lot about us growing up, as kids and getting interested in films before pursuing film school and things of that nature. So the directors have been very much, sort of personal favorites, or not so on this first pass. Whereas I think as we move forward, the idea is to perhaps, go even more diverse with some of our choices. And obviously we've not only, current films, but we've got the whole history of film from like all around the world to pull from. So I'm sure we'll discover new things along the way, which is kind of part of why we do this and part of the fun of it. It's great to go back and revisit our favorites and stuff, but it's also nice to discover new stuff along the way. So yeah, but indeed, suggestions are also welcome.
Indeed they are. So we got, we're going to have a great season 2 coming up, but let us finish season 1, and let's finish it with talking about a director that you've probably guessed already, if you've listened to the whole of the first season, who it's going to be, because hey, we did a podcast about 3 of his films already, and he is one of the directors that does come up once in a while.
Oh no, you mean we're not talking about Rob Zombie or Edward Zwick? Oh, I've done the wrong homework.
Do you mean you're going to have to wing it?
Damn, no, not at all. We are, of course, kidding. Yes. So you may have heard one of our podcast specials last year, which we called the 88 miles per hour edition, was obviously on the Back to the Future trilogy, directed by Robert Zemeckis. So today we've made sure that we picked different films of his to talk about for Z.
Well, yes, because otherwise it'd be a bit boring to go over the same territory we dedicated the whole podcast to. So this is the Robert Zemeckis podcast minus the Back to the Future films.
And there's still plenty to choose from. I'm pleased to say. Absolutely.
He's been quite prolific in his time since he started making films. Now on IMDb, his earliest credit is 1972 with a short film called Lift, which I believe it was that one or Field of Honor that caught the attention of Steven Spielberg, who asked him to come on and write. Is it 1941?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, I think once you've got the attention of Steven Spielberg, that's it. Your career's made, isn't it? But you know, rightly so, because this guy's got a lot of talent. I think as a filmmaker, you know, very interesting body of work. I mean, he's tried a few different things. You know, he clearly has a big interest in digital technology and digital filmmaking, which we'll come on to. But also, I mean, certainly from a, you know, growing up and becoming interested in films perspective, I remember him being attached as a producer as well to TV shows like Tales from the Crypt, and Amazing Stories and things of that nature, which were obviously influential as well as the movies.
Well, this is it. I mean, the first film he made as director was a film about the Beatles called "I Want to Hold Your Hand," which I haven't seen, but you know, it looks like it was a lot of fun, and then went on to make Used Cars, which didn't do too well at the cinema, and he had a break about 4 years before making Romancing the Stone, and then from that film his career just rocketed because Romancing the Stone was a big hit, and then of course the next film he made was Back to the Future, and it was an even bigger hit.
Yep, no, absolutely. Which, as I said, if you go back and check out the 88 mile per hour edition, then you'll hear us waxing lyrical about that film and obviously its sequels. So please check it out. But obviously not until you've listened to this podcast.
So Robert Zemeckis is also known for, you know, as well as doing drama, he got very heavy into animation in the sort of 2000s with doing like films like The Polar Express, Beowulf, and A Christmas Carol, especially where it was this 3D motion capture. So the idea is that you could have actors play all the characters in the film. So like with The Polar Express, it was Tom Hanks who played all the characters, and then with A Christmas Carol, it was Jim Carrey. And I have to say, I've never been a big fan of those films because they always seem to be more about the technology than they are about the story. I know there's people who actually will love The Polar Express and The Christmas Carol, but I've never really been a big fan of those.
No, well, we'll definitely come to that later and talk about that in more detail. And of course, you know, in the interim as well, he also experimented with mixing animation with live action, you know, with the Who Framed Roger Rabbit film.
Yeah, which is a film that kind of stands up really well now, but you know, up to this day, I mean, it's an amazing sort of sleight of hand trick that he did, that, you know, that these cartoon characters could interact with the world. And also the fact that not only were they Disney characters, but they were Warner Brothers characters as well. So it was the first time you ever saw, and the only time you saw, Mickey Mouse with Bugs Bunny.
Which makes it a landmark for that very reason.
It does indeed. It does indeed. You know, and he's won you know, an Oscar for his work on Forrest Gump. Or has he won any other Oscars, or is it just Forrest Gump that he won for?
I think it was certainly, yes, he definitely won it for Forrest Gump. I'm just trying to think, did he win it for anything else? I think he's been nominated.
He's been nominated, but he only won for Forrest Gump.
Yes, yeah, I'm pretty certain that is the case. Yes, you know, again, very good film, Forrest Gump. I mean, you know, this guy has got a pretty impressive filmography, and Obviously choosing both heaven and hell is always tricky when you've got someone like this, which has got so many good films and not that many bad films. So you have to go through and pick accordingly. But there you go. But we've managed it. We've got it. We've got four films to analyze this evening.
Well, I would have hoped so with that, with all his credits.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get on to to our first film then. So, Keith, what is your pick for movie heaven?
Okay. Well, we have mentioned it briefly. I have picked from 1984, Romancing the Stone. Really big fan of this film. Have been, ever since it sort of came out. It was another one of those ones, like we're always talking about back in the good old VHS days. I remember seeing this one with my mum, my dad, and my nan, who we lived with at the time, who's sadly no longer with us. But I remember the whole family sitting around and actually enjoying this, film. It was a proper good piece of entertainment. It really was.
I remember it was always being advertised on Fox Video, on CBS Fox Videos, as like a part of an unofficial trilogy. So you had Jewel of the Nile, and you had War of the Roses, which,
yes.
The only thing connecting those films together was the fact that it was Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito. I mean, yes, Jewel of the Nile is a direct sequel to Romancing the Stone, but War of the Roses is completely different to the other two films. It's like furthest from, really.
Yeah, well, no, absolutely. Directed by DeVito himself, I believe, isn't it? War of the Roses.
That's right.
So, yeah. No, I mean, this was very much the era as well of, and Zemeckis was a big fan of doing this, where they would actually film trailers specifically for the films. He actually did that one for Back to the Future, which we didn't mention in the podcast, where he says, "Where are you going?" And he says, "About 30 years," and all of that stuff, where they were showing the DeLoreans the bit by bit, and it was linked with Huey Lewis and whatever, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you got to remember though, the voice that says "Where are you going?" It's a very sexy woman going, "Where are you going?"
Yes.
You're thinking, and then Michael J. Fox does the whole thing with the shades, and it's like 30 years in the past. And I was thinking when I saw that recently, I was thinking, if you had this like sexy woman talking, you wouldn't jump in a time machine. You're like, I'm going to stick around actually.
Yeah, there you go. He hadn't thought that one through, had he? No, but in this one, I remember. I do remember the trailer was Danny DeVito's character on the phone to Ira, who he's always ringing, basically complaining, but kind of giving you the outline of the plot. So they actually, as I said, they actually filmed a trailer specifically for that. So I remember, I think as a family, we may have seen that on another film that we'd rented, which kind of prompted us to get this, if memory serves. But I do remember one of the things I obviously saw it a couple of years afterwards when it was on television, because what I distinctly remember and being quite annoyed about at the time was on the television they'd actually changed some of the audio, some of the swearing in it, which obviously seems very mild by today's standards, but I guess at the time, shit and all that sort of thing couldn't be said. So I do remember it being one of those films that appeared odd once you knew it, to rewatch it on television, dubbed, and they also did that whole thing where they put the because obviously this is a 235:1 scope film. They used to squeeze down the credits at the beginning, but then pop out to a full screen and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I do remember that.
I do remember on this one that they didn't squeeze down to the picture. I think it was 4:3 all the way, but it was for the end when you see the boat going down the street down in New York. That's when it went into widescreen and you started seeing all the credits. So for me, watching it this time was actually the first time I've actually seen it in widescreen.
Oh yeah, me also.
All up to this point, I'd only seen it in pan and scan. I have to say, it didn't add that much to it. I didn't feel like I was missing much. It's not like when I watched a John Carpenter film in its natural, ratio. It's a natural aspect ratio. It, I didn't feel like, oh wait a minute, oh there's bits I've missed. On this, not really, because it's only two people, so the action seems to be very much in the center of the screen anyway. So I didn't feel like I'd missed anything really.
Yeah. I mean, it was nice. I got this, when it in like the mid noughties when it came out on DVD, and that would have been the first time that I'd have probably seen in its 235. But I mean, Zemeckis does like that aspect ratio, and I think he uses it quite well. But maybe he's also one of those directors that sort of shoots with that in mind. Coming from that era where obviously for television, back in the days when television were 4:3 and everything had to go through the pan and scan process. I know some directors back in that era sort of paid more attention to that, so that it would have a better life on television and home video prior to widescreen versions coming out. But yeah, so I mean, it certainly didn't originally it ruin my enjoyment of the film in any way. I really
No,
loved
no.
this. I think I've mentioned before, like Michael Douglas, kind of as a kid growing up, along with sort of Harrison Ford, Kevin Costner, and Stallone and Eastwood, was amongst sort of my heroes as actors. I always kind of enjoyed the movies they were in and the type of characters they played. And obviously for Michael Douglas, this was also a producing project. He had produced One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and obviously would go on to produce many films. One of which, one of my favourites, Flatliners by Joel Schumacher, which I think is an excellent movie that he would go on to produce. But with this one, this was a producing project for him, and he initially wasn't intending to actually star in it as well. There are a number of people potentially attached to this. I remember Christopher Reeve. Well, there you go, another hero actor along with many others. But Christopher Reeve was going to be attached at one point, but it got to a point where they weren't really able to have any luck in balancing deals with agents and people's schedules and things of that nature. So, Michael Douglas ended up not only producing this, but starring in it as well as Jack T. Colton, T standing for trustworthy, we're told in the film. And of course, starring as well, the wonderful, we've already mentioned Danny DeVito, but also the lovely Kathleen Turner as Joan Wilder. Who is kind of the central character in this story.
I just want to say about Kathleen Turner, because the great thing in this film is that you actually believe that she could be that kind of geeky romantic novelist at the beginning, and then sort of turn out to be quite sexy when it comes to the end.
No, absolutely, yeah.
When she lets her hair down, and you put her in a sort of a flowery dress, she's she played both parts really well. So that was really good casting.
Yeah,
because before this she had done Body Heat, where she played the femme fatale, the woman who seduced William Hurt's character in that film, and she's an absolute sex pot in that. So to see her playing somebody who's a lot meeker, this is really good acting.
Yeah. Oh no, it's fair to say she's a very good actress, and certainly the chemistry that she and Michael Douglas have in this film, works really well. But yeah, as you rightly said, when as the film starts off and we meet her as this romance novelist Joan Wilder, she's far from she looks very sort of spinsterous at home with her cat and a baggy check shirt on and trying to find tissues because she's in bits now. She's got to the end of her famous novel series, and yeah, it's good. I mean, in fact, I like the way this film and again they kind of mirror it a bit in the sequel. Starts off by sort of starting off within the story she's writing, so it sort of starts off as a Western, and we're in the Old West, and we basically have this scene with a voiceover narration as she's sort of concluding her novel. And I remember that was nicely shot and nicely done, and featured a very sexy model, if memory serves, as Angelina, who is the sort of heroine of her story, which she sort of ends up becoming, through the journey of this movie. She sort of ends up like becoming the hero of her own story, which is quite nice.
Well, this is the thing as well, is because when the first time we see Jack Colton, he looks exactly like the hero out of her novel.
That's right, like the picture on her wall. Absolutely.
And also the way he's shot in that opening sequence.
Yeah,
I really noticed it this time watching it.
Yeah, well, this is where, I mean, we're talking about the directors on these things and Zemeckis, and I know we give loads of other people, creative people involved, kudos in these things, but yeah, I mean, Zemeckis, you can see as you watch this film. I mean, obviously, when I watched it as a kid, it was just pure enjoyment. Now I watch it as an adult, I watch it with a filmmaker's eye always, and Zemeckis absolutely had his storytelling and his craft down with this, and it's simple little things like that, the framing of those shots and the composition of those shots to make the hero, the hero's appearance in her mind at the beginning very similar to the first time we see Jack T. Colton when they meet, sort of 20 minutes into the film or whatever it is. So yeah, that's very well done. The other thing
can I just sort of, before you move on, just want to say about how good Zemeckis is at setup, because so like with that opening sequence, when the imagery then parallels what we see when Michael Douglas comes along, but just like lines of dialogue as well, because when Joan Wilder gets the package and then finds out that her sister's been kidnapped and she's got to go down with the package, her agent says, oh, where do you got to go? Oh, Columbia. And she goes, oh, we sell your books really well down there. It's kind of a throwaway line, but then later on in the film, the payoff is that we meet the character of Santos, this drug dealer, with his little mule.
His little mule.
Yeah. He's a big Joan Wilder fan.
Yes.
That bit where he goes, John Wilder? You're John Wilder?
Absolutely. In terms of foreshadowing and setup and payoff and whatever, this film has that layered all the way through, and very, very, very well done. I mean, interestingly, when because I watched it on Blu-ray for this, and there were some additional features that hadn't been on the previous DVDs, or at least the ones available in the UK. And I watched, there were some deleted scenes on it. And what it seems is they had a casting change during this, because her agent, in several of the scenes that were deleted from the film, was played by, well, it was a guy rather than a woman, for starters. And it was played by, a different actor. But it was a very different type of relationship, and quite interesting. I don't know whether they decided to just go back and reshoot these because they wanted a different setup on that bit where they're looking at the men at the bar and the agents going through, too happy, too sad, all of those sort of things. I don't know, but I found that quite interesting to see that it was actually initially a very different opening with the agent. But the other great thing about this, although it is a tragic story, is it was actually written by a first-time writer by the name of Diane Thomas, who kind of obviously channeled, I guess, very much of herself into the Joan Wilder character, and understood the sort of writing aspect of it. but sadly, shortly after the success of this movie, she was working on another script for Spielberg, and she unfortunately got involved in a car accident and died very young. So she never really
Oh,
got to, she made this wonderful. I mean, she could have been, who knows, she could have been like the next J.K. Rowling. You know what I mean? Back then, but she'd written this wonderful story and this wonderful set of characters, and it was clearly had led to other things if she was sort of working with Spielberg. And unfortunately, she actually died in a car accident. So very sad, because I think a lot of this film, is very much down to the fact that it's extremely well written. So credit
it's
to her.
yeah, it's very sad. Do you know what script she was working on?
I don't know. I only know just bits and pieces I managed to sort of read while I was researching this. But I think one thing that was really sad about it is the car she had the accident in, I believe, was given to her as a gift by Michael Douglas. So because it was a
Right.
Porsche or something. So, but yeah, very sad, very, very sad, because I do think, credit to her. Yes, Zemeckis' direction is wonderful, but also I think this script is fabulous, and that's why it works so well. I mean, it is so entertaining, and it's such a journey that we go on with Joan Wilder's character, that, like you said, everything is beautifully set up and foreshadowed as it goes along.
So do you think that's one of the reasons why the sequel doesn't work very well?
Well, the sequel's actually dedicated to her, but yes, I mean, well, we'll come on to that a little bit. The sequel still entertaining, but obviously didn't quite live up to this film, and hence why they never made. It was originally going to be a third film, which sort of sat in development hell for some years, and in the end they decided to can completely. So so it just ended up with the two films of this franchise. But to be honest, this film works totally on its own.
Do you mean that War of the Roses then wasn't the reason it got not made?
Yeah, well, maybe, who knows. So another thing that's kind of interesting with this is looking at it. A lot of his creative team on this were people who ended up going with him and joining up with him and Bob Gale to make the Back to the Future movies. So you've got the wonderful Dean Cundy as the director of photography on this. Alan Silvestri provides the score. Lawrence G. Paul is the production designer. So there are a lot of people that Zemeckis has surrounded himself with, that he's gone on to share his career with and work on many other productions. Other thing that works really nicely in this film is the stunt coordinator is Terry Leonard, who was one of the stuntmen that doubled for Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark, and did the sort of famous truck chase scene where he went underneath it. But he's on as a stunt coordinator for this, and again, we've mentioned like the little mule already, but definitely some of the car chases and the stunt sequences in this film are pretty impressive to boot, particularly the waterfall scene, and very good work all round, I think, by everybody involved.
Now, am I right in saying that when they did the waterfall scene, they nearly had an accident? Didn't like one of the stuntmen? I think it was the stuntwoman went under or something. She got caught on like the car or something. I heard that something went wrong with that stunt with the car going over the falls.
Quite possibly, yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure on that. But I know, it was certainly an impressive stunt and a very dangerous stunt, no doubt. So, I don't know whether they had complications with that or not. But yeah, I mean, everything motors along really well here. Essentially, this romance novelist, as you've already mentioned, she receives a package from her sister. Her sister, by the way, was played by Robert Zemeckis' wife at the time, who also appeared in quite a few of the Lethal Weapon movies.
She appeared in all the Lethal Weapon
yeah,
movies.
all of the Lethal Weapon movies. There you go. I think sadly she died last year though. So
yes, she did. Yeah.
Yeah, again, not particularly old, but sad. But yeah, so she plays the sister of Joan Wilder, and as I said, she sent this package which takes Joan Wilder down to Colombia. And I have to say, I really do think the way they set that up and sort of film the differences in culture is done really well and quite amusing. You know, she suddenly goes down to this country where you know they're all clearly experiencers and not conceptualizers, and you know everything's a complete mess. And on this bus journey, you know, she ends up colliding with Jack T. Colton's vehicle, and that's when, like you said, you get that wonderful iconic shot where you know, she's held at gunpoint by the guy at the bus, and then Jack Colton, you know, comes to the rescue. Although one of the things I think they do really well in this film is he's not the man of her dreams, in so much as, you know, she's kind of painted this ideal picture in her mind of you know, Jesse, as he is in the books, and you know, this sort of ideal person. But when she actually comes to meet him, or you know, in the manifestation of Jack T. Colton, you know, he's a guy that's very much out for himself. You know, is not really initially that interested in her problems. He's got his own problems. You know, and he's not the dashing hero that you know, she would have built up in her mind. And I think that's one of the things that works very nicely, because again, that their relationship initially has its ups and downs, and then, you know, you sort of see them fall in love with one another throughout this movie. And again, I think that's, in terms of the direction and the performances, is very well measured and put throughout this thing. And I think I was thinking about this because I did also watch Jewel of the Nile following this, and I think that's kind of one of the problems. Is obviously they go through this massive adventure in this film, you know, where their lives are in danger, and they sort of gradually come to know and trust each other and fall in love and have this happy ending, which is not cheesy in the slightest, because it's been completely earned. You know what I mean? So you're actually, because this is so well acted and well set up, you're totally with the characters. So when they do go off in the metaphoric sunset at the end on the boat, you know, it doesn't feel cheesy or awful like it would in some romantic comedy, because you know, they've kind of earned it by that point. But I think the problem when you get to the Jewel of the Nile is it's that thing, like they use it, they say it in a lot of drama. If you put these two characters that they have this will they won't they type relationship, once they eventually then get together, you know, from a drama point of view, there's not so much range for them to go. It's a bit like I heard it described with Lois and Clark, you know, the Superman show in the 90s. In the first couple of seasons, you know, Clark and Lois were sort of competing reporters, and he obviously had the hots for her because, hey, she was Terry Hatcher, why not, you know? But you didn't know if they were going to get together. And then when she finds out, you know, he's Superman, and they get together and they get married and all this, that, you know, the show kind of lost some of its interest after that point. And I think maybe Jewel of the Nile, to an extent, suffered from that, amongst other things. But, you know, I think that was a factor.
I think that when Joan Wilder meets Jack T. Colton for the first time, she doesn't see him as Jesse. We as the audience see him as Jesse.
Oh, yes.
She has a perception that, you know, that men are, you know, would help her in her distress, that, you know, she's a woman on her own, she's in a country she's never been to, you know, she's just had a gun pulled on her, and you know that her rescuer would be somebody who's dashing and heroic. And of course Jack T. Colton is just self-serving, and he's only after, you know, to make money because he wants to buy his boat.
Yeah.
When they fall in love, there's still that bit where it's like, well, he could, you know, he could be, as Danny DeVito put it, romancing the stone from her.
Mm-hmm.
That he's just, you know, trying to be romantic so that he can get the stone with her, you know, with her, and then running off with it and, you know, leaving her there. And at the end, it kind of does make you think that he could have quite easily not turned up the end. I mean, okay, it's a PG film, it's a Hollywood film, so we know they're gonna get there, but there's a little bit of doubt. It's a little bit of doubt because, you know, she writes the book. She writes a book based on the experience. I'm sure she changed all the names and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the agent says, "Oh, I love it." I mean, especially the bit where he meets her at the airport at the end, and we know that's not happened to her. That she, you know, it's been some time because she's been able to write a book
Yes.
of her experience, and also the fact that you know, probably after dealing with all the police and everything down in Colombia, would have taken a bit of time. So, you know, it probably, let's say 6 months, you know, down the line.
Easily. Yeah, I would agree. So it looks like he left her. Yeah.
But then the ending is great because there he is. He's turned up and he got his boat.
Yeah. and he's got his his crocodile you know, cowboy boots and
No, they're alligators.
Alligators, yeah, sorry.
They're alligators. Yeah, they're alligators. I have to say the one thing that I wasn't a big fan of, but was all right, was the character Ira, because he just kept on saying, "That's a snapper. Look at that snapper," and he even says it at the end when he's got, like, you know, the main villain's called Zolo, and he's like General Zolo, and he's got, like, you know, his own sort of militia, and they're all, you know, they're all there, you know, for the showdown at the end. And even then, when they're doing the whole thing with threatening Joan Wilder with feeding her to the alligators, he's like, "What a snapper."
Yeah.
That's all I can sort of remember dialogue wise from him. I know he says more than that, but he just always, you know, especially when they sort of end the scene. I think because there's some scenes where it just kind of ends. You know that it hasn't. The way they've written the scene, there was probably more dialogue, but they didn't want it, and so they just ended it earlier. So they just sort of end it on him going, "Look at that snapper."
Yeah.
He just seemed like an awkward cut.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that there was probably, you know, certainly with the Danny DeVito side of things, which obviously featured Ira most of the time, you know, there was probably its fair share of improv from Danny DeVito, who did some great. I mean, this film is a great mixture of sort of action, romance, and comedy. I mean, it's got a bit of everything, and Danny DeVito is you know, very amusing, both with his sort of physical comedy as well as his dialogue and whatever in this. And I actually do kind of like the ironic reference where when they're in the cave, he mentions Batman showing up, and who knew that 8 years later he'd be playing the Penguin. There you go.
Just about to say that.
Yeah.
It was just great. It's just, and also there's been other examples of this, and the other one always springs to mind is Christopher Walken in The Dead Zone, talking about
Sleepy Hollow. Yeah,
which he then went on to do like 15 years later or so, playing the Headless Horseman. But it's just wonderful when that happens, when just like a line of dialogue, and then years later that character then is part of that universe. It's really good. But then at the time, I don't know who else could have played the Penguin.
Oh, I know that there was somebody else quite famous attached, which has gone completely out of my head. Hate it when that. Oh yeah, Dustin Hoffman was attached at one point, I think. Okay. But obviously that would have been a very different kind of penguin. But yes, I know. I know he was attached at one point. But well, I mean, it's like when he was attached to Blade Runner, it would have been a completely different film. But thankfully we got Harrison Ford instead. Yeah. And this is cool because look at that. We've already got in this podcast our Batman and Blade Runner references. Yay. There you go. It's almost like we're trying, isn't it? It's almost like we're trying to do it.
We could start our own drinking game every time we either talk about Batman, Blade Runner, or Alien. You got to take a
Or
drink.
Star Wars. Yeah, no, exactly. It's hey, everything's connected. That is the thing with the film business.
Yes.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
They're all connected, which is
such a small world.
It is, sadly. It's a small world unless you're in it. Yes, absolutely. But yeah, but that's kind of one of the things we love so much about this. But yeah, I mean, other than just going into plotty stuff, which most people have probably already seen this anyway, I've not got much else to say other than it was really enjoyable. I mean, we have sort of touched on it, so we'll go there. When the going gets tough, the tough make a sequel. Interestingly, Jewel of the Nile, apart from the three main actors and Douglas as producer, featured a completely different creative team helmed by Lewis Teague in this case. And you see, this one, it's weird. I kind of have a memory of this one because I definitely saw the first one on video. But I think this one I did actually go to the cinema to see because obviously it was kind of that big deal. Oh, this is the sequel to Romancing the Stone. It's got to be great. And I have to say, I think I enjoyed it to a point. But it didn't, Romancing the Stone works fine as a standalone film, and it didn't really need this sequel. But the sequel was fun. I mean, obviously it was massively known for its, especially here in the UK, the Billy Ocean when the going gets tough get going with the video, which obviously had all the scenes from the film and stuff in it, and of course the Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, and Danny DeVito being the backing singers.
which all wearing white suits.
Exactly, which was all fun. And also another little bit of really stupid trivia here, but in the early cuts of that video, they used to show Danny DeVito playing the saxophone, but apparently that caused a problem with the music union, so that had to be changed so that a proper musician was shown playing the saxophone. Yeah, bit of sad trivia there, but there you go.
How did they take the Paul Simon's video with Chevy Chase?
Who knows? Maybe that's what started it. I don't know. But
it wasn't Call Me Out, it was Call My Union.
It was, yeah, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I thought the Jewel of the Nile was entertaining to a point. But this film, largely down to Diane Thomas's script and Robert Zemeckis and his team. I just think, and because it was an original, it wasn't a sequel. It's an original story. Worked really well. So yeah, for me anyway.
Now I'll just say that with Jewel of the Nile, I did enjoy it a lot when I was a kid. I saw it on video. I didn't see it on at the cinema. I think I probably saw these films back to back because, as I said, because CBS Fox used to have the trailer with the 3 films on it, sort of this sort of unofficial trilogy, and but watching it again recently, I caught it on TV and I just found it painful. I was cringing for most of it. It wasn't great, and
no, it wasn't.
I have seen War of the Roses, but I saw it when I was younger. It's not a film I return to. It's a film that I remember having not very good memories of, probably because I was too young to be watching it.
Yeah.
And it just... Then again, saying that, I'm not a big fan of The Money Pit, which is kind of similar.
Right.
War of the Roses is a very dark film. I mean, there's a whole bit where the dog gets cooked or something like that. I'm just going off the top of my head.
Yeah, the only bit I remember is I'm going to be pissing on the fish, and then when they cut to it, he's literally pissing on the fish. But yeah, I don't remember much.
I can remember at the end of the film they both end up in the chandelier or something.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, I also remember that Kathleen Turner tries to seduce Danny DeVito, but I think I just remember that from the trailer more than anything. But yeah, it was off the back of watching Romance in the Stone, During the Nile, that I watched that one.
Yeah, well,
I've kind of regretted it.
yeah.
maybe it's a really good film. Maybe it's worth going back and watching now. But it was weird that you had this sort of unofficial trilogy just because the three actors had appeared in these three films.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they all got on very well, and there you go. I guess when DeVito was going to direct something, he thought, "Oh, I'll bring my two chums in. They'll work perfect for this." They've got chemistry. We know it. So yeah.
Maybe they just hated each other at this point. They were like, "Oh, we play a married couple that just hates each other." Yes, perfect.
Exactly. Because that's where it all ends. We all know that. Oh my God, I've gone into cynical mode. Let's shut up, Keith, right away. Yeah,
and we got cynical Keith on this show as well.
No,
you're getting the full gamut.
Yeah, let's move on. But no, I mean, Romance in the Stone just sort of felt like a natural one for me to choose because it was probably the first Robert Zemeckis film I saw, and it had a big impact. I mean, I've liked a lot of the films he's done subsequently to this, but I just thought this one would be an interesting one to chat about.
Indeed.
And I hope you have too.
All right. Well, moving on to my pick for Movie Heaven, I have gone with the 1980 film Used Cars, starring Kurt Russell and Jack Warden. And this was a film that I caught one night, late night on TV, and I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it, and I just started watching it, and I laughed through the whole thing. It was so hysterical. When you laugh and it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
That was me at the end of it. It was just, it was so funny, and there's some great sort of set pieces in it. But yes, if you don't know the film, it's about Kurt Russell plays a character called Rudo Rosso, who's a car salesman, and he works in a car lot that's it's a bit run down. The cars they sell, not great, falling apart. I mean, the fact that the opening sequence is of him kind of turning back the clock, the speedometer on a car to make it look like it's had less miles, and then you see him sort of pump up a tire, and then you see him stick gum on the bumper because it's falling off, and it just tells you everything you need to know about this character, that he's going to do anything just to sell a car.
Yeah, no, of course.
Yeah. And so you have these two brothers, the Fuchs brothers, both played by Jack Warden, which is brilliant because he plays this really lovable character. Of the main lot, the rundown one, and then he's a complete bastard as Roy Fuchs, who he's got like the blue jumpsuit, and he's got the sideburns, and he's like a good old boy, and he's made his money, and he's going to make more money, and he's got the shiny new car lot with all the best cars and everything.
Yeah, I mean, apparently that's how they got him to agree to do it, was because obviously Jack Warden, being a veteran actor and money for this, they got him to agree to do it apparently because he could get to play the two different roles. That wasn't necessarily the plan initially, was to have them be twin brothers, and they brought that in to try and close him in on it apparently, and that's how they got it. And a good move it was too,
It was, but I don't think they're twins. I'm sure the Fuchs brothers, who runs the older lot, is an older character.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
he looks older. He looks
older.
Total
sense. Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
The Roy Fuchs, he looks younger. Not much younger, but he looks younger. He certainly looks a lot healthier. I mean, the older Fuchs, he's got like a heart condition and everything. You always see him taking pills. But what happens is that Roy Fuchs learns that they're going to build a motorway, and there's going to be an off ramp on where his car lot is. So he needs to, you know, the thing he should have done was go over and buy the car lot off his brother. But because they're feuding and he won't talk to him, he comes up with another plan to inherit the car lot, and sends one of his mechanics to go over there to, you know, to scare him to death, which he does. And so Kurt Russell and the other salesman, played by Garrett Graham and Frank McRae, they have to pretend that everything's normal. You know, that Luke Fuchs is gone, and he's gone to Miami, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He's driven down to Miami, and so that, you know, because Roy Fuchs can't prove that he's dead. So Kurt Russell's character wants to be a senator for that state, and he's got to earn a certain amount of money. I think it's like 80 grand or something like that to buy his nomination. And so he's doing everything in his power to you know, to raise that money. And so once he's in charge of the car lot, then they start, you know, doing some really outrageous things. It's like they sell old junkers to the drivers, what they call it, driver's ed, driver's education, you know, to the school board, and you know, sell them like old taxi cabs that have been sprayed blue. And then also you have this character called Jeff, who's he believes in luck. He totally believes in, you know, good luck and bad luck. He's got like lucky charms, and he won't walk under a ladder. And if he sees a black cat, he won't let it walk across his path and all this stuff. But his main thing is red cars. Red cars mean trouble to him. They're bad luck, and it's just beautiful how that plays into the story. You know, that it's not a character trait that's just there. It actually fits a purpose, and that sort of comes into the story later on. Well, actually, I mean, I'll just say it because there's a whole sequence where, so it turns out that the elder Fuchs brother has a daughter he hasn't seen for ages, and she's come into town, and they're trying to hide from her the fact that, you know, her father's dead. You know, they tell her that she's left town. They're trying to do everything to sort of, you know, get her out of town because they're trying to do this commercial. They're trying to break into the signal of the president's speech, and so they can do this commercial, which if she sees it, you know, she's going to start asking questions of where her father is and stuff, because why would there be a commercial being made? And so she eventually it comes out that he's dead, and they've come up with this really great plan of showing that that he's died, you know, by putting his body in, well, because they buried him in the back lot in his old car. They unbury him and then sort of drive him autopilot into a pylon, so, you know, destroying the car and the body and all evidence. But the daughter doesn't, you know, the daughter knows the truth, and she fires the lot of them. And so Kurt Russell has put his money down on a football match, on a football game, and Jeff has said, "Oh, I've got, you know, good feelings about this one team," and of course, Kurt Russell, he bets on the other team, and of course they're losing. And so what Jeff does in this bar is he does everything that's bad luck. He goes under a ladder, he breaks a mirror, he pours salt everywhere, and of course it starts affecting the game. It's so great to see him doing all this stuff and seeing it affect the game. It's such a great scene. And then also you also have the whole thing with, so the daughter's in charge, and the Fuchs brother, Roy Fuchs, still wants that car lot. And what he does is that she's done a commercial, and at the local TV station, he gets one of the technicians to change a word up. So she says, was it style of car? And they swap it with mile. So she says mile of cars. We have a mile of cars, and so he does a for slander, takes her to court, and so that way he can get the car lot offer. And so how, you know, Kurt Russell's character, you know, he's about to become senator. He's got the money, and he finds out that the younger Fuchs brother's car lot is in trouble. You know, if they just stay there, you know, they're going to have the best car lot in the area, because the other Fuchs brothers' car lot's going to be torn down, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so he turns up at court and he says to her, you know, he convinces her to say, yes, we have a mile of cars. And of course gets all the driver ed guys, you know, all the kids to come along. And there's 250 cars going through the desert to get back to this car lot. And it's just so great. And of course, again, when I was talking about Romancing the Stone, the whole thing about setup, at the beginning, we meet this character, oh God, what's his guy's name? Manuel, who's, you know, he's a typical sort of, you know, caricature of a Mexican. He's all dirty and likes touching himself a lot. But of course he shows him a picture, doesn't he? Kurt Russell, this picture of 250 cars. So which comes into play, you know, later on. Because, and why this kind of works, why it's not so on the head, is the fact that it's kind of throwaway.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Kurt Russell doesn't want to know. He just shows him a picture and it's like, I've got 250 cars, man. And he's like, yeah, whatever. And then of course later on it plays part of it. And you know, so many things this film. But it's one of those films where it is really funny. And also Jeff at the end, he's driving a red car with blue primer on it. And so when it gets sprayed off, he stops, and there's this great stunt where he walks backward and this car just misses him. And you're just thinking, God, the timing on that must have been great, because if he'd just been a bit quicker, that car would have hit him. And you know, there would have been they'll have to find a new actor.
Yeah,
but
no, exactly.
You know, but in the end, it's sort of, you know, he's able to. He does a stunt where he drives over a train, you know, and is able to get there, and you know, sort of saves the day. But I do love the actor who plays the judge, because it's Grandpa from the Munsters.
That's right. Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you pick this, I have to say I was somewhat surprised to start with, because I thought, really, you know, this is the guy that's done, you know, Castaway, Contact, What Lies Beneath, you know, all these films, and you pick used cars. But I thought, okay, and I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I put it on, and you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, again, this is he co-wrote this with Bob Gale, you know, the same guys that obviously did the Back to the Future trilogy. And something that, you know, they are masters at is this whole sort of setting things up that pay off later, and that works really well in this case. And it is wrong. It does make me laugh though, watching it today, is you realise how sort of politically incorrect the whole film is.
Well, it came out at a time of Porky's, so you had to do that thing where, you know, women got naked. I mean, it only happens once, doesn't it? When they do that commercial, when they cut into the Super Bowl, and the whole bit where her dress gets snagged on the
bonnet
hood ornament.
Yeah.
And of course, and the top comes off, so they have to push in with the camera. They've got to be really rude about it. I do love the bit with the guy, he's having sex with his wife, isn't he? And then he just looks at her, and then looks at her breasts, and like,
that's right,
I'm missing something here. Yeah.
I think that's Dick Miller, isn't it? I think it is Dick
Yes,
Miller.
it
That guy.
is. It is Dick Miller. Yeah.
What really made me laugh as well was the family at home when the kids go, "Oh look, naked boobies," and the mother's like really pissed off, and the dad's kind of enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny how everybody else turned up at the used car lot apart from Dick Miller.
Yes, yeah, no, exactly. He was still in bed. He'd scored. Well, he didn't need to go anywhere.
Well, I think the next day he had to go into his gun shop.
Yes, indeed, because somebody was going to buy. He was going to close early that day. Yeah.
He was going to check out early. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a big fella wants an Uzi.
An Uzi 9mm. Yes, indeed. See, we've even got that into the podcast. Wow. We're really ticking them all today.
That's it.
But but in terms of this film, I know obviously Spielberg, and I think it was John Milius as well, wasn't it? Was involved in getting this produced for them.
That's right. They were
quite early in their career.
On it,
yeah. My understanding is, though, I think it kind of suffered a little bit because it was the same time that the Airplane film came out. Oh, look, another Z for Zucker. Zuckers or whatever. There you go, another
brothers,
Z. But that came out at the same time, and I think it had. I mean, I don't know. This was all sort of before my time to sort of remember in terms of cinema and box office and stuff. But my understanding is that had some impact on the initial success of this film. I believe.
Oh, I definitely, because the Airplane poster is just everywhere.
Yes,
I remember in American Werewolf in London, when the guy's running through the tube station, you actually
we got that in there as well.
We got that as well. We see an Airplane poster on the wall, and I remember going through that tunnel when I was younger, seeing that Airplane poster there. I think that Airplane poster was there for years. I think it was never touched. I think near the end, before they've changed all the tunnels and everything down there, that they actually peeled back some of the old posters on it, and there was still the Airplane poster.
Right.
Still there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's very famous, of course, but one of the other things I noticed watching this now, I mean, I did kind of like, again, things I wouldn't have picked up on so much as a kid, but the sort of duality between used car salesmen and politicians and corruption and all that sort of thing. But what Zemeckis did is, I noticed he used, or should I say, he would use a lot of the actors that were in this in later stuff, because pretty much whole extended family in Back to the Future were featured in that massive car convoy scene. You had Mark McClure and the girl who played his sister and all this sort of thing in there.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
cool.
Also the fact that you have the actor who played Manuel was in Romancing the Stone with his little mule.
Oh, that's right, the little mule guy. Yes. Yeah.
He's the sleazy Mexican, car salesman who kept touching himself and everybody else. I mean, also you got Michael McKean in there.
Yes.
As one of the tech guys, who actually has, like, the other guys installed a pacemaker in him.
That's right.
You see the wires go out his chest, and it just looks like it was, handmade. It just looks.
by the way, while we're mentioning Michael McKean, I have to say it because I'm a big fan. I don't know. I know you watch a lot of Netflix and stuff. Better Call Saul. Do you watch Better Call Saul?
I've seen the first episode. I haven't watched the rest of it yet. I haven't had a chance. But yes, he is very good in that.
Yeah, he's obviously Bob Odenkirk's brother in it, and he does play it really well. And that's a great. I mean, it's 2 seasons in now, but that's a fantastic spin-off series from Breaking Bad. But anyway, and one other actor in inverted commas that I want to mention, because I thought it was great, was the dog.
Yeah. Oh, the dog was great, and just from the fact that the way he treated Jack Warden's character in both disguises, because when he's say Luke Fuchs, the older one, loves him, everything, but when he plays Roy Fuchs, the dog just hates him.
Yeah. No, absolutely. The dog actually kind of reminded me of the dog with the eye patch from Tales of the Gold Monkey. I don't know whether you remember that, but you know, the whole one bark is yes and two barks is no, or whatever. It always reminded me of
Okay.
that. But there you go. I'm off on a tangent. But
No, but seriously, the dog's great in it. I mean, the fact that Frank McRae plays Jim, the big black guy. He's always falling asleep, isn't he, when he's repairing the cars? I mean, the first scene you see him in is he's got the spray canister, isn't he? He's still got his finger on the trigger, and there's just this blue paint being sprayed down his leg. But
exactly.
I mean, later the dog pisses on him to wake him up.
Yeah, no, absolutely, of course. And just so we can get, you know, because obviously we're not doing it on purpose, but you know, we're bringing up other unrelated franchises that come in. Did you notice? so we can get Star Wars in there. Did you notice that the judge was hanging the Han Solo Star Wars figure? Did you notice that? You know, when he's
I didn't.
Yeah, you know, he's got the little setup on the side. He's like,
yeah,
you know,
he's got the guillotine and stuff.
Yeah, well, the hanging is actually the Han Solo action figure, and it's the version with the large head, because there were two versions of that figure. God, how geeky am I? But
wow,
I didn't know.
I did not notice that. And usually I pick up on Star Wars figures in films. It's like in Poltergeist, you see all the Star Wars figures.
That's right.
So
in E.T.
Yeah.
There you go. It's in all the great ones. Yeah. No, but and also I also like the little sort of nods to Elvis. You know, with Kurt Russell when he goes into his room and he's got the ornament of Elvis that he nods to, and I was like, I kind of thought that was quite funny, as he obviously started off in an Elvis movie and played Elvis. I thought it was quite nice, like little Easter eggs like that. I do enjoy. So yeah,
checking because I'm just curious because I'm not sure if he played Elvis afterwards.
Wasn't Elvis in '79? I think with Carpenter.
Yes, it was. Sorry, no, you're right. Yes,
so it's
you're correct. You're correct. Yes.
And then of course he'd been kicked by Elvis years beforehand when he was a mere boy. Or he'd kicked Elvis, should I say?
I imagine if Elvis had kicked him, it
would have been the other way. Yeah, no. But yeah, no, this was kind of, I have to say, to go back and visit this was kind of interesting. It was one of those films that I'd always been aware of, and I'd definitely seen it at some point on television, I think, possibly quite edited actually, yeah, it was good to sort of go back and revisit it, and it's ridiculously stupid, but at the same time it's thoroughly entertaining, and you know, when you think about it, Kurt Russell's character along with the others is you know, a very sort of flawed character in many respects, because everything they do is very wrong, but at the same time,
I know it's all sort of you know, they're characters who are very, you know, if you met them in real life, you wouldn't want to know them, but yet there's something very kind of compelling about watching them in this. And I just think it's because, as bad as they are, Roy Fuchs across the way is just even worse.
Yes.
You know, he is ruthless when it comes to trying to get that other lot. And even in the end, he still tries to stop them getting all those cars back to the lot. And he's such an evil bastard, you know. But no, it's a great film. It's worth you know, seeing, because it's still funny. I mean, even when I watched it again recently for this, still laughed. So that's why I picked it. It's just, you know, it's a film that is funny from beginning to end, and it's, you know, gut-wrenching funny, you know.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it, my stomach was absolutely sore from laughing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's done more technically better films than this, but the storytelling in this is just great. I mean, the script is really good, and it's all about setup and payoff. And it works really well, and there's nothing left hanging. And every character has their part to play. They all have their shining moment, and their character traits play out really well. They're there for a purpose. It's not it's not there just to be some sort of dressing.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like the whole luck thing totally pays off, but is beautifully set up right from the beginning with that character.
Yes.
And that all works rather well. And hey, this was an early film in Zemeckis's career, but I think it showed that he had the chops to pull off this sort of thing. And it's good, and we always enjoy Kurt. He's another hero, so we always enjoy Kurt, and seeing him play a morally ambiguous character like this one was kind of fun. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it was indeed, very much so. Right. On that, we are gonna take a break, and we will return after these messages.
What's the matter, Jane?
It's kind of hard to explain. I can't put my finger on it, but there's definitely something wrong. Jane?
I suppose we can't expect her to get over it just like that.
It must be past this.
It's so bright. Why is it so bright in here?
It's just the dawn, Jane.
You have to take her to the hospital. Have her placed under constant watch.
That much I know, but who done it?
You don't even try and stop me. You know I'm going to harm you, yet you do nothing. What about that wonderful husband of yours?
Not Martin. I love him.
Well, someone has to die.
Blood and Roses. Available now on Amazon.com, on DVD and video on demand.
Kane, the Stone Cold Assassin.
3 men, Corbin Taylor, Zeke Jones, and Jesse Williams, were held for questioning by Marshal Gazer.
His revenge will be swift.
Ain't you the law around here, Sheriff?
Nowhere to run. No place to hide.
Jesse, you ever meet Kane?
The new violent and bloody horror short from director Mike Tack. Red Wolf Pines.
Is that what you told Luke?
He died like the dog he was.
Starring Keith Eyles as Kane.
That bastard ain't gonna find us out here.
Available on YouTube and official website www.apocalypticconservatory.com. Red Wolf Pines. Rated R for rowdy.
So, you're making a film?
Horror film. Meta horror film. A horror film about horror film. Horror film about cinema.
And why would you do that? Life is so beautiful. You just have something in your eye.
I thought you said you wanted to do something different. Why do the same thing that everyone else is doing?
It drives me mad. They all have opinion on everything. Nobody listened to me. Nobody tried to understand anything. Just too much.
I found out recently that I had a syndrome when I was younger. When I try to go to sleep, the whole world will change. Like everything will go too quick, too slow, or too big, too small. I could control it.
Benny Loves Killing. Available now on Vimeo and IndieFlix.
And if they don't go for it, you'll kill them all.
So we're back. And so we're moving on to our picks for Movie Hell. So, Keith, what is your pick for Movie Hell?
Okay, well, for Movie Hell, I had a look at his filmography, and I thought, what am I going to do? And I've decided to go with 2007's Beowulf film, which is obviously based on the old folk tale. This was part of Zemeckis's digital animation era. We already touched on this slightly earlier in this, but he'd already done the Polar Express, which he'd used Tom Hanks for the motion capture in that one, and obviously would later go on to do Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. I have to say, I remember I saw Polar Express when it first came out, and I did see it in around Christmas, and it was in IMAX 3D. So I remember at the time being, that time of year, that sort of movie and whatever, being sort of taken away by the spectacle of it and actually quite enjoying it, and feeling quite sort of set up for Christmas once I've seen it. It really got me in that sort of Christmas mood. But I don't know. There are different types of films out there, different types of movies, and different types of filmmaking craft. And I have massive appreciation for digital filmmaking craft and animation. I really respect that. But it's not something that I always think works. And it's funny because we've had directors experiment with different types of stuff. Obviously, Richard Linklater, he played with rotoscoping, with his films like Waking Life and A Scanner Darkly and those sorts. And obviously, Zemeckis worked very much with the motion capture, for these movies that we've mentioned. I don't know though. I kind of, when you're going to do something photorealistic, I think those crafts and those arts and that technology works really well when it's like the way it was used in like Lord of the Rings or the Planet of the Apes reboots, or the MCU, and all the stuff Andy Serkis usually does.
What's the biggest one? Avatar. Avatar was the biggest one when it came to like motion capture and having these wonderful environments and these big blue people. That was all sort of motion capture and all CGI when it's from the majority of the film. I mean, yes, you had human actors in there, but when it was just on Pandora with the blue people, they were all CGI. It was all
Yeah.
But it's I think the term you're looking for is uncanny valley. The idea of you look at it and you think my eye can tell this is not real. It's close, but it's not real.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of I remember there was that film as well that came out, Final Fantasy, which was based on a video game which was done this way. I always find them a little bit sort of soulless, and it is to me like watching a video game. And the thing is, when you're going to do something that's supposed to be really photorealistic, like this type of film, like Beowulf, for example, I do kind of think to myself, what's the point in doing it all that way, rather than just having elements of it like you have in those other films, like the Planet of the Apes?
Because in real life you wouldn't have been able to do the most epic of cover his dick shots ever, which this film has. This takes what Austin Powers did as a joke and extends it through a whole battle scene. There's this whole bit with what's Ray Winston's character called?
Well, he's Beowulf, but the Gretel or whatever, the character.
He is Beowulf.
Yeah,
yes, he is Beowulf. My apologies. For some reason, I thought Grendel was Beowulf, but no, you're correct. Ray Winston is, he's able to play his younger self, quite, and he's buff and everything, And he decides, well, let me just say, he decides to fight Grendel naked, but this is a 12, so you
Yeah.
can't have like a big cock shot in there or anything. And so for that whole scene, it is all about placing stuff to cover his cock.
Yeah, well, it's funny. You kind of got to that before I was going to, because it was one of the things I was going to mention was essentially, yeah. I mean, you know, you've got these strategically placed bits, like you said, as was a joke in Austin Powers, but they don't. But that's the other weird thing with this. It's kind of this was only like a 12 or whatever, and of course it's all CG animation. But that was the thing with it. It's a strangely sexual film. And to the point that it's actually a bit weird because you know, you're not seeing real nudity, but because the technology is so good and the artistry is there and the graphics are there, it is almost like you're watching real nudity. So it's really weird. I think it's a very odd. This film to me has got a very odd tone to it.
Yeah, you know what it is, that they were trying to be like Excalibur, but having their hands tied with a 12 certificate.
Yeah, well, this was the thing. I mean, apparently the script by Neil Gaiman, which Roger Avery was going to originally direct, was, you know, I think it was a case of it turned into a budgetary thing because he wanted to film it like, you know, Polanski's Hamlet or Excalibur, you know, and have that type of look to it and that type of reality. And you know, obviously, I think it was suggested by the studio, and because Zemeckis had some success with using this technology to actually, you know, make this film and do it in a motion capture way. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously, yeah, straight away you've got some odd casting here because you've got, you know, Ray Winstone's got a six-pack rather than a beer barrel. Yeah, he's kind of, it's kind of, you know, and you just sort of think, why didn't they just like do this and get Chris Hemsworth to play him? And they, you know, it was.
Well, I don't think Chris Hemsworth was an option back in those days.
No,
I mean,
probably not.
We're talking about 2008.
Surprising how long ago it was. Yeah,
you know, it was probably made from. I imagine they started making this back in 2006, well, definitely 2007. So Chris Hemsworth was, you know, still over in Australia.
Yeah, no, it's really weird. Yeah. I mean, it's very clever, you know, what they've created. Obviously, you know, apart from Ray Winstone, a lot of the actors, you know, they do use their because of the way they can capture this, their actual likeness, you know, for them, as well as just their voice and obviously their movement. But you know, I mean, I know from an actor's point of view, a lot of actors enjoy this because it gives them a lot more freedom, in so much as because hidden marks and lighting and things of that nature are not crucial in this. You can shoot the scenes as a whole, and it's very much, you know, I've heard a lot of actors liken it to theatre in so much you can play the scenes out in full, and it gives them a bit more freedom. But having said that, I've done, I mean, you know, when we talk about my experience and I say, oh God, I've kind of done a bit of everything, but just never really sort of got anywhere. Well, I have actually done a little bit of motion capture back in the day myself, for a video game that Chris, who's been on the show, you know, when he used to work in that, got a little gig for me. And it is very bizarre that you're wearing this like skin tight, very unflattering blue suit with golf balls at all of the joints, and then you've kind of got like little silver dots on your eyelids and around your eyes and whatever. It's very odd, and a sort of weird cap thing on your head. So you know, you don't, like I said before about acting, you know, I kind of always feel like from the outside in, where if I feel I look the part, I can be the part, and this certainly isn't the case with this kind of acting. But I know a lot like it just because they haven't got to worry so much about the technicalities and where the camera is and you know, those sort of areas. So I know a lot of actors actually quite enjoy this process, but I have to admit, I think it's brilliant, when it's used, like I said, big example, as you know, I'm a massive fan of the Planet of the Apes reboot, and you know, in those films, it's a specific thing to create that specific character, but it's obviously in a natural environment. Whereas with this, it was kind of, because everything was created, and some of it did look so photorealistic. It was you know, unbelievable, but it just lacked that something. And I just thought that tonally, for me, this film didn't really work. I just thought it felt a little bit odd. You know, even though it's entertaining to a point, and you know, there's a lot of action in it, and the effects are very good, it kind of didn't quite work for me. So that's why I picked it as movie hell for Zemeckis, because I think amongst his body of work, which we've already said is quite varied but also pretty strong, this one, I mean, I think the film actually was quite successful, but for me, I mean, I didn't see it on the big screen. I didn't see it in IMAX. I didn't see it in 3D. I just saw it on DVD. But I just didn't feel it worked. I felt, as I said, I felt it had this sort of strange vibe to it on the whole sort of nudity and sexual side of things. And you know, they'd taken this old story and you know, sort of expanded it out some, but it just, I don't know, it just lacked something, and I can't quite put my finger on it, other than saying that I'm just personally, I prefer to see live action stuff, even if it is fantastical, which of course we've already mentioned. I like lots of fantastical films, of being a sci-fi fan, etc. But when the whole process is done this way, I just felt that in this particular case, it didn't work for me, and that's just my thing. But you know,
but as somebody who did see it at the cinema, I mean, I saw this when in the middle of filming Blood and Roses. I actually went down to a cinema in Cornwall with the lead actress, and we watched this together. And she was really looking forward to it. I was not. I don't know. I was a bit blasé about it, and we saw it, and we both agreed it wasn't very good. I mean, and it's. I wouldn't even say it was entertaining. It's kind of boring. It's just this weird thing where I think it's just you can't. I don't really connect with the characters, and I think it's because you're kind of just looking at the technology a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't got it going on in the eyes, has it? You know, like
no, but I mean, I think though there's nothing about the characters that are really that striking. I mean, so Beowulf is always talking like this. You know, I'm Beowulf. You know, he's always sort of very big, and so is Anthony Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins is, you know, huge. You know, acting to the rafters.
And we talk about weird foreshadowing again. You know, he mentions Odin in this, and obviously goes on to play Odin in Thor, which is another one of those funny little links. But
you know what it is. There's filmmakers out there taking notes. So when an actor says something like that, they go, "Oh, Odin, eh? I'll remember that for when I make that Thor film."
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, you know, I mean, in terms of the way this is edited and planned and all of that sort of thing, it's very competently done. You know, and again, you know, we've got Silvestri does the score for it, and that's quite good. I actually quite liked as well, I have to say, the song in it, you know, Hero Comes Home. But of course, it's sung by the same person that went on to do Frozen, which I have to say, I've still to this day not seen that film.
Oh well, let it go, mate.
Yeah, I've heard. I heard that once it's in your head, it never leaves. So yeah, I've decided no, I'll avoid that at all costs.
Well, that moment in the film is really a standout in Frozen. I mean, when I went to see it at the cinema, I wasn't expecting anything from the film, and that certainly was a knockout moment in the film. So I don't know, it's worth, you know, if you've not seen Frozen, I think it's worth checking out. I mean, it's, you know, it's definitely aimed at a younger audience, but you know, they did a good job with it. I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, but you know, Beowulf, I mean, you know, the message is basically women are trouble, isn't it?
Well, the children of the women you sleep with are trouble.
Yes. So yeah. I mean, again, apparently, Ray Winston also he played the son, but he also played the dragon as well so obviously he fights himself.
Yeah, I'd love to have seen that bit. What was he doing? Running around the stage, you know, waving his arms around like a child. I'm a dragon. Because yeah, I mean, unless they're talking about the voice, but
yeah,
you know, I don't think they were motion capture, you know, because I can't see like Sean Connery and Dragonheart, you know, going around going, sure, I'm a dragon. I'm just gonna flap my arms up and down, like sure.
Goodbye, Junior. Yes. But yeah, I mean, and you know, obviously you've got Angelina Jolie playing the seductress here. Well, you know, that's a stretch, isn't it? You know, but
oh, can I just say, when she appears at the end, your heart really drops and you go, oh God, they're gonna go through this again.
Yeah, that whole story, it all starts again, you know.
You're just like, oh dear God.
He gets the horn in more ways than one.
The golden horn.
The golden horn, yes. That's...
I want to address something in this, and just briefly, but I also think the inclusion of the Christianity in the story didn't add anything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the story, the old story itself is fairly short, and they've had to sort of.
Well, it's a poem.
But yeah, exactly. They've had to sort of, you know, take some artistic license and pad it out somewhat. But yeah, I mean, it's. Yeah,
it's this weird thing that it doesn't really add anything to it.
No.
Apart from giving characters moments to sort of talk about the old gods and how they're, you know, that men don't believe them in anymore, but it doesn't add anything to it. And I mean, I don't want to say too much here because I'm just preempting you, but with the film I'm going to talk about, you know, it's a subject that he revisits again in a bigger way.
Yes.
And again, just doesn't work for me.
Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. The other thing, of course, one of the things that does come out of this is it does reunite Robert Zemeckis with Crispin Glover, who plays Grendel in this.
Yes.
Obviously, again, having a bit more freedom with motion capture than he had, you know, maybe working on Back to the Future. But yeah, it's. I don't know. It's just, for me, it was just an underwhelming film. Amazing amount of artistry went into it, which, you know, I appreciate. But did it work at the end of the day? Not for me, really.
No,
I felt removed from it, and I think you're absolutely right. You spend too much time actually, you know, focused on the fact that the CG is done so well, but at the same time lacking something, that you're kind of pulled out of it, which I never quite had that problem so much with the Polar Express, because that was something a bit more, you know, Christmassy and slightly more stylized. I mean, that's the other thing. If you're going to do in animation itself, if something's going to be done in animation, then I kind of have more time with something that's stylized than something that's blatantly trying to be photorealistic, because otherwise you do sort of think, well, why didn't you just shoot it for real, you know?
But then, as I said, you wouldn't have had the most epic of cover-up shots in a film, you know. I think one of the reasons why the film doesn't work is the fact that too much energy was spent on the technology, on the getting these sort of, you know, coming up with these kind of shots that is like, well, hey, you know, we're doing CGI, so we can do stuff that we couldn't do in real, you know, with real actors. So let's do that. But yet it doesn't add to the story at all. It sort of subtracts from it, and it's just not very interesting. Yeah, it's just, you know, you don't get to know the characters really. you know, outside of Beowulf, he is, you know, surrounded by all these other actors and all these different characters, and you don't really get to know them. They're sort of just kind of introduced, and it's just so, you know, you feel like they're kind of wasted and stuff like that. I mean, most of these men get killed, don't they?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Not by Grendel, but by his mother.
Yeah.
And you know, you don't really get to know them that well, which is a shame, because they did have some sort of, you know, they did have their kind of own characters. I mean, there was the one who kept, you know, chasing after the women and stuff, but you know, he gets killed off and that's it.
I had a bit of a problem with the Anthony Hopkins death as well. That just seemed a bit. I was like, did I miss something there? You know, it's just kind of like, okay, well, I haven't got any children, so you can have my kingdom, and I'm just going to go and throw myself off the balcony.
No, I think that was all part of the spell that Angelina Jolie's character, you know, casted, because she, you know, he slept with her, and she said if this, you know, golden horn stayed with her, then that he would get to rule the kingdom and everything. So I think that was just part of the spell. But yeah, when it got to that point, I was not bothered. It's like, yay, he's going by.
Yeah.
you know, and it, yeah.
You
know, his wife, played by Robin Wright, you know, just goes straight to bed with him. And it's just like, okay, you know, obviously you didn't care for your, you know, for the king.
No, but he had been given her the golden horn all along by walking around naked with his Adonis body. It's very odd. It was a very, I don't know, it's a very weird, it had a very odd tone to it, this film.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is the fact that, you know, we all know how old Ray Winston was at the time.
Yeah, he was in his 50s, wasn't he? Yeah.
So to see like a younger version of himself, but not how he looked when he was that age, but an idol, you know, it's very much an idolized version of what he would have looked like at that age. I mean, he looks exactly the same as he is now, but it's like they've taken his head and put it on the body of a 20-year-old, you know, who goes to the gym a lot.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that was certainly off-putting. I think that was definitely off-putting, because it was this disconnect between, you know, who the character is and this is what he looks like in the film. And I'm sure for him, he loved that.
Yeah, I say they should have got him a personal trainer, damn it.
Oh, there's a whole lot of Photoshop going on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting that Robert Zemeckis has kind of always sort of experimented with some animation and with digital animation and that throughout his career. I think that's interesting, but I don't know. For me, out of the three, you know, if you take Polar Express, this one, and the Christmas Carol, I think the two Christmas movies work a lot better than this particular one. Even you know, even though this is kind of an interesting idea,
I think the story of Beowulf would work better as a TV series. I mean, they did it like a Game of Thrones TV series. I think it would work a lot better, because then you would get to know the characters, you know, and so that when they died, it would matter more to you than it does in this film, because I think also because they're doing it within 2 hours, there's a lot to get in there.
There is, yeah,
and you don't get enough time for, you know, characters to sort of, you know, make their mark, and you're just kind of thrown in there, and you know, and you're kind of catching up all the time.
TV shows of everything at the moment, aren't they? So all the announcements this week, it's like, oh, okay. So no doubt there is a Beowulf television series in development as we speak.
Oh yeah, and I think it would work better that way. I think it would work a lot better that way, because, you know, you know what was missing from this film? It needed a prologue or something. It needed something to sort of set the scene, because you're just thrown into this party, and then Grendel turns up and just wreaks merry havoc on the people. I mean, that was the other thing as well, the violence in it. You know, people getting torn into. And, you know, it's very strong for a 12. Yet, you know, we can't show cock in it at all.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like because it was animation and not real, they felt they could get away with more. But I just think because it did look so photorealistic that, you know, there was a very fine line there. And I was surprised. But anyway, when I was watching it, I picked up the cover because I managed to get it for like 50p in CEX, and unfortunately it's got no extras, so I wasn't able to do too much research. But I saw the film and I picked it up, and I was like looking at the box saying, this is only a 12, really? Because, you know, because of the violence and the sort of sexual nature of it, I thought it would be a you know, at least a 15, if not an 18. So I was kind of surprised, but it is what it is. So you can get away with it with animation, I guess.
That's it. That is it. Right. Well, let's move on. Let's move on to my pick for movie hell, and I have chosen Flight from 2012, and you know, I kind of like the idea of this film. It's about a pilot who is in a plane crash, and he saves a lot of people, which at the time was kind of very topical, because you had that pilot who landed his aircraft in the river in New York, missing. You know, he saved everybody. Hero, absolute hero. And they take a character like that, and but they say, but hey, this guy's got flaws. He's an alcoholic. He takes drugs, and so the rest of the story is about this character who, you know, he's a terrible drunk, you know, trying to sort of, I don't know, become sober because he's got a trial coming up. Where, you know, he's trying to sort of, you know, clear his name. He's trying to say, well, you know, it doesn't matter that I was drunk and I was on drugs at the time I was flying, because I saved everybody. You know, and it wasn't my fault. It was you know, but it does becomes about that.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was more about addiction denial more than anything, because this character, which, you know, I love Denzel Washington, he plays it very well, I think. You know, he is absolutely in denial that he has a problem. He does not think he has or realize that he has a problem at all. And you know, that was kind of the main theme of this that I picked up on, having only again, this is I'm kicking myself twice now. I've missed the opportunity to see Robert Zemeckis in a Q&A, and in both cases it's meant I've ended up actually not going to see the film, and this was one of them. You know, back in 2012 he was over for the London Film Festival, and I couldn't actually make it. And then I was away in Denver last year when The Walk came out, and there was a BAFTA screening with a Q&A at that. So, which again, I haven't yet seen that, and I hadn't seen this until you picked it for the podcast. So interesting. But I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't actually think it was. I was surprised you picked it as hell, because I didn't really think it was a bad film. I mean, I think it's a great performance. It's nice that he's gone back to reality for this one, you know, to something you know, photorealistic on this one. And interestingly, the two you've picked are his only two R-rated movies, even though some of us think that Beowulf should have been as well. But all of his other films have been, you know, more family-friendly films, other than this one and Used Cars, which is interesting. But
my main problem with this film is the use of Christianity in it. It's a very Christian film. It actually feels like, you know, like some church has paid him money to make this, because the Christian imagery in it is just bashes you over the head. So when the plane crashes, it nearly hits a church. So he is saved by people who were, congregating there. His co-pilot is a big Jesus freak, and becomes even more so when after the crash. We meet a cancer patient who, just tells him that, he's got to believe in Jesus. If you believe in Jesus, then everything goes away. And then it just keeps throughout the whole film, this whole thing about, Christianity and Jesus. And then it stops and just goes away. And then it just like, I'm confused. What is this story about? Okay, yes, it's about, Denzel Washington's character being in denial that he's got, a massive addiction, which is, kind of shown by the night before he's going into trial. He is able to get into the room next door, which has a mini fridge full of alcohol, which he decides to help himself to.
Yeah, that bit was a tad heavy-handed. I agree. That particular part. Yeah.
I mean, okay, I think John Goodman's character is great in it and deserves his own film, but he's in it in like 2 scenes, and he says to him, "I'm your own personal Jesus." I mean, it's so thick with Jesus and Christianity and stuff, but it doesn't add anything to the story, because at the end, Denzel Washington isn't saved by Jesus or converted. He takes it upon himself when his co-worker is going to be blamed for having drunk. They find these empty bottles of alcohol on the flight, and because his blood work's got alcohol in it, and this flight attendant that he was banging before he got on the flight had alcohol in her system, but she had saved, she got killed trying to save a passenger, and he, on his conscience, he couldn't do that. He couldn't let this girl's memory be blemished like that, which I think good for him, but he doesn't turn to Jesus. He doesn't, but the whole thing with Jesus is just so annoying. It's just me personally. I mean, I think if you're going to have Jesus in a story, or you're going to have Christianity, then let there be a point to it. There wasn't a point to this. It was just, I don't know, it felt shoehorned in there. And for me, it just made me, I couldn't enjoy the story, because really, I mean, the story should have been right up my street. The whole idea of, this character who's massively flawed, and he does this heroic thing, and everybody comes down on him. And, it should have been like, him against the system kind of thing. But they were, and then him, at some point realizing, yeah, it's his fault. But these characters who, Jesus, Jesus, it just knocked me out of the film every time. I don't know if it's from the book it's based on, or if it's Robert Zemeckis's, own point of view, but it just had this element that it just tainted the whole film for me.
No, I see. I mean, yeah, because this, unlike a lot of his work, this one, he was kind of director for hire, wasn't he, rather than actually being, one of the co-writers of the piece. And what I thought, I mean, first of all, he is surrounded by a very, very strong ensemble of co-actors in this. I mean, you've got the likes of, you mentioned John Goodman, but you've also got Don Cheadle and Bruce Greenwood, and you've also got this sort of subplot with Kelly Riley's character, who yes. Which kind of seems to be, she's sort of the antithesis of his character, in so much as she's not in denial that she's got problems, you know, and she obviously he goes along with her to that AA meeting, and which he feels very uncomfortable at, and things of that nature. What I thought, I mean, it's interesting to hear your kind of religious views, on the subplot of this and the subtext of it. What I thought you might have, when I watched it, obviously until we have these discussions, I don't know why you've picked it until we've had discussions. And when I was watching it, obviously I'm curious. I think, this is a good film, and Denzel's acting really great here. I know he got nominated as well for this performance, and I'm thinking, and I thought it might have been more around structurally, because what I thought was a problem with it is, I thought the setup was absolutely brilliant. All of the stuff with the airplane crash, again, all done
the airplane crash is great. Yeah, the setup is just great.
And I thought the ending with his confession during the hearing, again, that could have reeked of absolute sentimentality. But I thought Denzel's performance in that, and the way he delivered it was really, really good and quite compelling. What I thought it suffered from was, I felt that the actual structure and rhythm of the film hit problems along the way. I thought that the beginning and the end was really strong, but I thought the bit in the middle kind of had some structural problems. And some of these other characters, again, played by great actors, almost felt kind of shoehorned in to the story to make those points to his character. So you had Don Cheadle, who was obviously going to be the lawyer in his defense on this case, that realizes that the evidence says he was absolutely under the influence, and therefore, flawed judgment and was wrong. But at the same time, thinks that what he did as a pilot in saving those people was absolutely amazing. In fact, again, I see what you mean. Back to religious elements, I think he actually says nothing short of a miracle. I think that might be one of his lines in it. Yeah. Which again is, now I'm saying it this way, sounds a bit heavy-handed, but maybe not so much when you're actually watching it. But so you've got him on that angle. You've got obviously John Goodman being his supplier and his dealer and whatever, and being there, hey, this is cool, you're a hero, man, on that angle. And then you've got Kelly Riley, who's got her addiction and her problems and her money issues and all that sort of thing, trying to go straight and trying to make something of her life, so you've got that element. And yeah, it is, I think structurally some of it is a little bit heavy-handed, and I think that's where it suffers. But I do absolutely take your point as well about the fact that it is, that there are definitely religious underlyings to all of those different themes and those other characters. So yeah, I just found the pacing a bit bad, but I didn't actually dislike the film. I thought the film was quite strong, but I thought it definitely had some pacing issues for me.
What I want to say about the Kelly Riley character is that the way they set the film up is that you have her story and you have Denzel Washington's story happening concurrent. And when we get into the plane crash, you see her being taken out of you see the plane flying over her motel where she's been taken out on a stretcher because she's had an overdose. And so not only did Denzel Washington with his quick thinking, save the passengers, most of the passengers, but also save the people on the ground. So that way their lives were connected as well. So when you're watching it, you think, well, these two characters, they're connected, and we're going to see see what happens with that relationship. And you do for a bit, and then she just disappears and she's gone and never mentioned again, never seen again. And it was just like, what a waste. What was the point of that character at all?
Yeah, well, I mean, they had that bit where she'd kind of she'd managed to get herself the job and whatever, hadn't she? And was kind of getting her life together. So she did have a bit of a conclusion to her arc, but it was so obviously only to get him to where he needed to get from a plot, from a storytelling perspective. Yeah, it was kind of wasted.
So we set up that these two characters' lives are are connected, that they are parallel, and that they're going to come together. You want that story to, to be the majority of the rest of the film. You may have, it would have been nice maybe to see her at the end, that she turned up to the hearing, or something, instead of her just completely disappearing, because then you wonder what was the point of her character. Why was she there? Why was it set up this way when there's, when the payoff is weak?
Well, they do have that bit though, don't they? I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the end when it's like a year later or whatever, and he's in prison talking to the inmates and whatever, when he goes back to his cell, aren't there some pictures of her in his
I didn't see that.
I think there are.
I don't remember that.
Okay,
there might have been,
because obviously he rebuilds his relationship with his son, because his son comes to do the interview for his essay and whatever on him.
Yeah, after that one scene where when he turns up at the house drunk, and the son starts telling him to get, I think, doesn't he tell him to fuck off?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's a swear word in there, but which is,
well, this has got swearing and nudity, and obviously the subject matter itself is pretty dark. So yeah, this is definitely an R rating. But
but the thing is, we only had that one scene to see the son. I know he sort of talked about him, and all the pictures you saw of the son was of him as a kid. But I think it just seemed too easy that the son would turn up at the prison to do this interview, again, because it takes a lot of time. He would have had to be in prison longer than a year for his son to sort of, because as a teenager you're a hothead. If you feel that your father is is bad for your mother, then there's nothing that he's going to do that's going to make you think the other way. It's only when you get a bit older then you sort of maybe start to realize a character like that, what the kind of you start to see his point of view maybe, or sort of maybe forgive him. But a year was just, it felt to me too quick. It just felt wrong.
No, I understand. I mean, this guy, the writer of it, that was obviously, he was nominated for several awards, including an Academy Award for this. But his name's John Gatins.
John Gatins.
Yeah. I mean, he's done a few things. He's got some stuff coming up as well.
He's writing the new Power Rangers film.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and Kong Skull Island as well. But he also,
don't forget Real Steel 2.
Exactly, and he also wrote Need for Speed, which yeah, okay, so yeah, he's done quite a bit of acting as well. I didn't realise that. But yeah, I just feel that maybe I feel the problems with this film is not in the directing of it or the acting of it, which I think are very good in both cases. I think it's at the script end, meaning even though the story itself's not that bad, I think maybe this script could have done with a polish or some reworking, because I mean, according to IMDb trivia on this, because again, I only got this on a cheap DVD which didn't have the commentary or any of the extras.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of looking on IMDb, and apparently absolutely everything that was shot was used in this film. Nothing ended up on the cutting room floor at all. So it just there makes me think that you know, did this go through enough rewriting and restructuring if like literally everything that was written and shot was used?
I think the whole Christianity slant does come from Robert Zemeckis, and I say this because he makes Beowulf, and there's a whole Christian subplot in that. Is the fact that John Malkovich's character, who originally starts off as like an advisor to the king, ends up being like a priest, the Catholic priest, and again, it was this one thing that didn't add to the story, but watching these two films back to back, it kind of stuck out like a sore thumb. So it does feel like Robert Zemeckis has this, he's kind of interested in religion, in Christianity. Maybe he is a big Christian, don't know, but it's just suddenly it's there in his work, which it wasn't before. I mean, in Forrest Gump, I don't remember there being bits, you have a character who rails against God, for God's sake. You've got Sergeant Dan, who in one scene when in the storm, he's railing at God,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's just, it feels to me like it's something that later in his life he's kind of he's kind of got this interest in Christianity, and it's sort of really come out in his work, and I don't think it doesn't help his work. It's just this element that sort of kind of turns me off.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's not something I've ever really thought about, but that is very interesting. Yeah, I'm just looking at his filmography now and just trying to figure out where that might have changed.
Maybe it was around the time he was doing Polar Express, and it's like, oh, Santa, God, Santa, God.
Yeah. Not sure. Now, have you seen The Walk? Because you see, I missed that. I've obviously seen the documentary on which it was based and stuff, but I've not seen the actual film.
It's very much like the documentary, but then they actually film, that you actually show the walk, and it's not something that's talked about. You get to experience it. It's kind of like and I heard a lot of people when they saw it in 3D that the whole walk sequence itself is kind of breathtaking.
I have to say, I saw I don't know what film I'd gone to see, but I went to see a film in 3D IMAX that this was there was a trailer for this on the beginning, and it was in full IMAX 3D. And I have to say, the trailer gave me vertigo. So he was doing something right, because that seemed quite effective, actually, even though obviously it was completely unreal. I know.
Well, I remember when I first saw the trailer for Gravity on YouTube, and I was like, I went, oh, this looks terrible. And then I saw the trailer for Gravity in 3D, and I went, oh my God, I have to see this in 3D.
Yeah, it's funny, some films it works for and some it doesn't.
Yes.
But I think if it was shot for it, then it usually works. But yeah.
Well, yes and no. I think it depends on what they're filming, because the thing about Gravity was it was very much a ride. It was kind of like a roller coaster ride.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the story in it is very slim, really.
Mm-hmm.
The story is, astronauts go into space, there's a major disaster, and one astronaut has to fight to survive and get back to Earth. That is the story.
Yeah, no, there
you go. And the rest is just spectacle. It's just, the whole sensation of, being out in space and just, trying to fight to survive and things like that. So
there you have it. We even got onto Gravity. Brilliant.
We got into Gravity. But the thing about Gravity is, yes, I've seen that at the cinema, but have I gone back to seeing it since? No, because it was just an event film. It's something to see on a big screen in 3D, and that's it. And it's just a film I don't want to return to, because story-wise, character-wise, kind of weak.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean. Yeah. So, I mean, any more to add about Flight?
No, that's me for Flight. Or do you have anything more to say about Robert Zemeckis?
Wow, oh dear, there's so much, isn't there? But I mean, yeah, I think again, what we try and do sometimes on these podcasts is maybe not necessarily go with all the obvious choices, and I think we've
yeah,
perhaps picked some here that that are less talked about in his filmography than some of the stuff. So yeah, hopefully people will find that interesting. But yeah, he's done a. I mean, on the most part, I've seen most of his films. I have not seen the last one. I don't think I maybe saw the very first one, but most of the stuff in the middle I've seen. And yeah, again, on the most part, I've enjoyed these. These have been very very entertaining films.
Oh, indeed. I mean, also sort of pushing technology. I mean, one of the first DVDs I ever bought was Contact.
Right. Yes.
Oh my God, Contact's got a heavy Christian slant to it. Oh my God.
There you go. Yeah. It all started with Contact. You've become very sensitive to all this, Simon. Clearly, you know.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think it's the way it's used because I mean, I recently got to see The Devils, and the as much uncut as possible because there's still parts of that film that's missing, and oh my God, that's got a heavy, you know, religious slant on it, but it works as a story. It really works very well as a story. I mean, I've got nothing against religion. I think it's just the way it's portrayed in the film. And sorry to go back to Flight, but the problem is that it just seems to be a lot of characters going, you know, God and Jesus, you know, you know, it's such a good thing, and you know, put your faith in Jesus and stuff. And it was a lot of propaganda, I would say, for Jesus and God and Christianity. And it was very, you know, that it was like playing to, you know, the middle, you know, the mid American kind of audience who, you know, they're people who, you know, would be known as God-fearing people. You know, that they have total belief in Jesus and God and the church and everything like that. And you know, and I'm somebody who, you know, I'm a lapsed Catholic. You know, I did my time when I was a kid. When, you know, when I was 18, I was able to stop going to church. And so, you know, and it's not that I don't believe in God. I'm not an atheist. But I just, you know, when somebody's trying to cram God down my throat, that's when, you know, I don't want to know. And that's what it felt like watching Flight. I mean, in Contact, not so much so, because there was kind of a payoff. I mean, the fact that she was somebody who totally believed in science, and you had Matthew McConaughey's character who was somebody who believed in God and Jesus and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they were butting heads. They were, you know, it was an argument.
Absolutely.
And in the end, it just happens that, you know, science didn't win out. The fact that this, you know, she went on this trip and there's no proof she went on this trip. It's just all to do with, you know, faith and believing her.
Yeah. Yeah, I need to revisit Contact because I picked Contact up on Blu-ray when Interstellar came out because I was going to do a bit I was going to kind of go back and revisit Contact because of Interstellar, and you know, because of obviously all the homework that I have to do for Movie Heaven, Movie Hell, I haven't got round to actually putting it in the player yet. But I do want to. It is one of those films that, yes, I saw at the time, which was, crikey, when was that? That was late 90s, wasn't it? Contact, I think.
What, Contact 97?
Yeah, so, and I think I got it when it first came out on DVD, which was probably the early 2000s, and haven't seen it in probably in at least a decade, I would say, if not more. So yeah, I need to go back and revisit that at some point.
It's kind of funny now, having seen the documentary about Jodorowsky's Dune, where he talks about the shot where it starts off the universe and then moves in, and it keeps going and keeps going, and of course the opening to Contact is you see the Earth, and moves away, and you're hearing the radio, you know, as it moves away, we go back in time. It's a very similar shot, and it's kind of interesting. I'm not saying that Robert Zemeckis ripped off Jodorowsky, but that people can have like similar thoughts.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And also that film was you know, even though the film was not made, it was a massive influence, you know, especially on Alien. Hey!
Oh God, we
got Alien in there.
Bloody hell, Simon! You planned that, didn't you? You must have planned that.
No, but that was certainly a bingo moment.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
Oh dear! I wonder if our listeners are loving this or cringing.
Loving it, I'm sure. Loving it.
We hope. So, yeah, but you know, other films. He's done a lot of good stuff, hasn't he? He has done a lot of good stuff.
Well, I mean, I do love the fact that you know, with Castaway, that he filmed half of it and then he stopped.
Went and made another film. Yeah.
So that Tom Hanks could lose the weight and grow the beard, you know,
Yeah.
to do it for real.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious to think that the next film he did afterwards was the Polar Express, where nothing was real in it. So
There you go. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. He no, because he went and filmed What Lies Beneath in between, which you know, I like, because obviously it's very, very Hitchcockian. There you go. Hey, we got Hitchcock in there. Yay. But yeah, he has had an interesting career, and he's produced a lot of good work as well. So yeah, I think we've given Robert Zemeckis his due between this and our Back to the Future podcast.
Yes,
definitely.
Yes, we have. Wow. Before we sign off, we just want to sort of add that you know, now we've gone through the A to Z the first time around, we're going to go again, but we're going to take a little break from it first. We're not going to. That doesn't mean that we're not going to do any more podcasts. It just means that we're going to do a few other sort of specials before we go back into it, so we can just, you know, catch up with everything and sort of just refresh ourselves.
Definitely. Yes.
We have more of a plan this time for season 2 of the A to Z of directors, and so we're going to be a lot more prepared, I think, hopefully.
Hope so. Yeah, I've realised, having listened to a few of them back, that I need to stop saying absolutely. I need to stop saying what's the other thing? There's something else that I say all the time. Things of that nature. I say things of that nature all the time. I need to broaden the vocabulary for season 2.
I have no worries about that. You know, it's what makes you you.
Indeed.
I have phrases that I say all the time as well. You know, like you know.
Yeah, we both say that a lot, I think. It's conversational, you know.
It is indeed. But I have to say, from somebody who edited a guy who said fantastic a lot, it's fine, you know, because that was the one phrase that drove me up the wall when I was editing a video, with one guy just going fantastic, 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 fantastic.
Have it.
So, you know, keep on with all those phrases of yours.
Well, you know, I bring the love to it, and I bring all the other films and the silly tangents that we go off on. Talking of tangents, right? We think ours is bad. I don't know if you listen to the Hero Movie Podcast. It's a US one. It's about all the superhero movies, and new and old. They talk about, you know, Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff, but they also talk about old stuff. And the last episode was actually I don't know why I'm plugging them, but it was a Superman 3 episode, which I found very amusing and had to listen to. But they actually went off on a tangent talking about footwear for 20 minutes in this podcast.
Oh God, we're not that.
No,
bad.
I mean, these are feature-length podcasts like ours, but but they really went off on a tangent, and I had to laugh at that. I thought, wow, that is, at least our tangents are usually about other movies, or maybe Christianity in your case.
We didn't go on about it for 20 minutes
didn't.
though, and
This
it
is
was
true.
relevant to the story we're talking about.
It was very
so-
relevant indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh dear. Well, anyway, we're gonna sign off before you tune out.
If you haven't already, yes.
And we're gonna end in our usual manner. So, Keith, how can we find your work?
Okay, if you go to YouTube and put in British Isles, with Isles spelled Eyles, as in my last name, you can find some short films there that I've written, produced, and directed, and that you can watch. Also, if you want to see other stuff that I've been involved with, past, present, and future, if you go to IMDb and put in my name, Keith Eyles, I think I'm the only one, you can see some other work there.
And as always, you can check out my work at independentrunnings.com. And just let you know, I've actually redesigned the whole website. So now it's full of not only of my work, but there's essays about the makings of my films, and I've put photographs and videos of work that's never been seen before. And also there's lots of other stuff on there, so if you're not checked it out, please do it there. And of course you can find this podcast there, as well as appearances by myself, and I'll have to put some appearances by Keith on other podcasts on there as well.
You've done a really good job of the website, and I actually can't believe, but you've actually put the full length interview that you did with me like 5 years ago up there, which I was really surprised about. I like, oh, he's put the full interview, and I did watch it. I was obviously complete egomaniac and watched myself in this interview. But what made me laugh is some of the things I brought up in the interview are things that I still go on about on these podcasts. So it just goes to show you I haven't changed my tune. I've always been single-mindedly obsessed by movies and stuff, and that hasn't changed. So yes, it was quite amusing.
It never will. So yes, so you can check out the podcast at independentrunnings.com. Also, you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Mixcloud, YouTube, and Last.fm. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Just search Movie Heaven, Movie Hell. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also leave us comments on YouTube, and I do get back to them. So it's always a good way to sort of contact with us that way. Thank you for listening, and join us for our next episode of Movie Heaven, Movie Hell.